You're
hello,
good.
hello everyone. This is our second installment of this Zoom approach to communicate and kind of talk with the community about the Beaver Boardwalk. What I'll do today, I guess first and foremost, this will be recorded. So if you have any issues with that, please message. Heather Way is with us from the town of Hinton. And I think I'll start off with like a kind of a high level update on some of the um, activity that's tied to the Beaver Boardwalk. The purpose of today is to kind of have a little bit of dialogue. Any questions that you have, we'll try to answer them here. If not, we'll obviously compile them and get back to you. If you want to share your email or phone number with Miss Way, we can do that and follow up with you if we can't get you those answers. So a bit of an update on the 4 sections that were approved to be rehabilitated, sort of replaced. The contract with Fine Line has been signed as of within the last 48 hours. So ordering of the materials have begun for that. And now that that process is sort of behind us to finalize that, now the town of Hinton could, albeit they say that they can finish this work before December 31st. We can't predict what the weather will be. So if it is a really warm fall, beginning of winter, that might be an issue. So the town of Hinton has begun the process to work with the provincial government to see if we can get an extension on the grant. So whether that be for a month, 2 months, depending on the work, we anticipate in the coming months, hopefully, I guess by the end of July, to have a confirmation or word from the province saying, yes, you could, in the circumstance that work cannot be completed by December 31st, to go a little bit later into winter. So that's pretty much the update for the 4 sections that have to be rehabilitated. A little bit of a high level update on the most recent activity regarding lowering the bridge and connections of the bridge. Well, those are 2 different projects. The lowering of the bridge, the town of Hinton has been working with an engineer and a contractor, and it looks like it's feasible to lower this bridge, at least 18 inches, and to cut down the railings and make it more user-friendly. You almost have to be a pretty tall person to look over it, and obviously for children, if we're going to have a bridge of that magnitude, it's got to be user-friendly for people in our community. I see people who are there, they want to take selfies and pictures. The railing is just way too high. So good news, preliminary, like I said, is that it looks feasible within the budget to be able to cut the railings and lower the bridge 18 inches. And then the second part, which I don't have an update yet because that'll go out to RFP for the connection. But obviously if the bridge gets lowered 18 to, in the perfect world, at least 24 inches, then that'll make it for an easier grade to connect the ramp to that bridge. So promising news so far. So I do want to, Winston and Heather and their team has been really great at working at that. So that's sort of the updates regarding the connection to the bridge. And like I said, the earlier one, contract signed with Fine Line, ordering of materials have begun, and working with the province just to give us some assurance that we don't get kind of put on the hook for any expenses that are occurred after December 31st. So with that, we had no preliminary question or no questions in advance, correct, Heather?
That's correct.
Right. So I'll open it up to the floor. I see Marie Soleil joined us. We have Beth and Jaylin, a big crowd, but Jaylin has a ton of friends that are coming on shortly. So I anticipate that shortly. So I'll open up the floor. Your mics, you could just open them up. There's no control or anything. If somebody's really rowdy, we'll maybe just turn it off. I don't know. But with that, if you just want to put up your hand, or if no one's speaking, just go ahead, ask questions, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Marcel, I just put it in the chat. When is Fine Line planning to start working on the maintenance project?
So great question. Probably not till the fall. So
Yeah,
no.
okay.
Yeah. So that's where the tight timeline is. And I know we've talked before. I think it's imperative for us to get an extension because we might not know until November, December that we can have access in good conditions in order for this work to do. So nothing, I would say, and Heather can maybe add something if I'm kind of incorrect, but October, really.
Okay, after the birds are pretty much gone. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the work will be done under frozen conditions. So it really depends when the frost is fully in for us. But as Mayor Michaels did say at the start of the meeting, the materials are being ordered and things are underway, but construction itself, not until we've got a frost.
Okay. Yeah. And I can ask another question on the bridge. You were talking about the lowering, but I did attend that council meeting, and when they were talking the options, one was keep the bridge for vehicle, keep it for pedestrian, which was option 2, and option 3 was remove. But I found it confusing. The removal really wasn't discussed, and I think there's 2 meanings to the removal. Like in the cost for the removal was included a cost for installation, where if you just removed the bridge, sold it, recovered that money, and then replaced it with simple footbridge bridge, it would reduce that cost quite a bit, like what the budget. So to me, that would be removal for replacement rather than removal for reinstalling. So I'm wondering if you looked at removal in that way, why would you go to the, to me, kind of risky business of cutting the bridge up and lowering it rather than, you'll need equipment in there to do that. So why not just take it out, sell it, recover that money, and build a nice simple little wooden footbridge?
Yeah, I can only speak for myself, and I know we've had extended conversations. I was open to any scenario, and especially with the price tag of 265,000 was, I believed, ridiculous. And then, honestly, it was a question of, if we're going to spend 265,000 to connect this, and that wouldn't even include the lowering of the bridge, then it just makes the argument of removing the bridge way more palatable. But since the conversation kind of went right away to, hey, we have no appetite for that sticker price. If we can get something within the grant, and even though the grant doesn't mean that we just spend recklessly, but capping it at 125 kind of just took over the conversation, right? It just, everyone was like, they were fine. And I know that's not exactly, or it's not exactly, that's far from what you wanted, and I get it. And I agree, pedestrian all the way. This bridge was never, I never believed that we needed this for anything more than pedestrian. So those were the concessions. Let's just know what this bridge is. It's just a regular viewing bridge. We've had sunk costs in it. And if we can get this done at 125 or less, then we were okay with it. Not a perfect answer. Obviously, I wish this would have never happened. But that, to answer your question, that conversation about removing just kind of went to the wayside since it sounded like we can do this for 125 of the grant.
Does the grant cover lowering it? Like I don't see why, if the grant covers lowering it, why wouldn't it recover removal? Because you're still manipulating what's there.
Right. And that's the caveat. There are conditions that if the grant doesn't cover the lowering of this, then that would have to come back to council. So that was part of the dialogue, because I'm with you. If the grant covers the lowering and the bridge for $200,000, then we're in a better place. Then to me, it's still not a great solution, but it's the best solution to make lemonade from, obviously, lemons, right? For a lack of a better situation or comparable. I don't know if that answers sort of.
Well, yeah, I just see like, well, the grant, like if it covers lowering it, it should cover removal with removing it, because you're still you have to pick that bridge up one way or the other. You need big equipment out there. You're playing around near in the stream already. You have to be working in frozen. So I think that would be a key here in terms of this concept of lowering it, is, yeah, like if you can lower it, why not take it out and put something in real simple?
So I enjoy that question. I think we could play it out if everyone's okay. because like I said, that conversation just
Never happened.
never happened, because there was some synergy towards, okay, 265 we can cut down to by over 50% that cost. So let's say the grant does cover the 200,000. I'll be kind of the devil's advocate. Like, it's not my style. I don't like that approach. But if we take the grant money to remove it, cool. You know, now we have nothing there. Then we have to spend extra money in order to create that boardwalk, which, like I said, I'll always admit, in hindsight, a regular walkway from north to south of a regular boardwalk would have been a great solution. We didn't need a huge bridge, but we would have to then account for those costs, because the grant would pay for the removal of the bridge. We have nothing there. The bridge goes somewhere else, but is it really a necessity somewhere else? So then if you incur or add the cost of the potential replacement of a boardwalk, and I'm trying to think of the length there, is probably what, 200 meters, 150 to 200 meters, I would say.
Sorry, go ahead.
Or there would be nothing there. And maybe that's the other side of the argument, that we don't need a connection there at all. But I think part of the process, or what some counselors thought but didn't express, was you still have to account for whatever you're going to replace the bridge with future money that we don't have.
Yeah, but if you're putting a boardwalk in for, like, say you take the bridge out, sell it, recoup some dollars, build a little wooden bridge, you can stay with the gravel paths you have now. Like, if you lower it, are you planning to stay with the gravel paths, or are you planning to put those ramp things in? Like to me, it's like, why removal of the bridge? You talk about having to put a boardwalk right through, when you don't say having to lower it includes the boardwalk right through. Like, I don't know if I'm being clear. Like, there's lots of parts here where.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I think you're being clear. The cost of reselling the bridge would then go to the new connection. So yeah, there's a point there for sure. I don't have a complete answer. I think the fact that the alternative was sort of, I don't want to say simpler answer, but it was an answer that was palatable to the overall community, that I think council thought. It's not an A+, but it wasn't just removing it with a bunch of other questions. And because we could do it at, like I said, 60% less than what the original sticker price, the 265 scared everyone. 125 and covered by provincial grant, that's a stipulation. You know, that money will go to another community. It's just like, let's end this. It's a pedestrian bridge. It'll be a mistake we can never totally undo, but it's at least patched up in to a bridge that should have been there in the first place. So
yeah, so there's no, with the council isn't building that thing that was in the invoice. You're not building that picture. That's not what you're planning to do.
No, and I think you watched that meeting. I focused on, this is a design build. Let's see what contractors offer up as a solution, and then have pick the best solution. So that picture, this is not a design bid build, and that's what I know we wasted half an hour of a conversation there, but I wanted to be explicit. Design bid build is when you pick a design, you invest your money into that design, and then you contract out that design to a contractor. I didn't want to go down that path. So right now we don't know what it would look like at all. Let's put it out to tender to get the best value, and use their engineering and contracting experience to say, hey, this is doable like this with that connection. And so we don't know what it's going to look like. So I don't know. Maybe Heather has some info on why the voice picked that picture, because I was stunned when I saw it. I was like, oh, that
awful.
Yeah. I don't know where it must have came from an old ISL document.
Heather, I'm not 100% sure where it came from, but of course, Beth, if you want to put that in an email and send it off to me, I'll make sure to get a response from you. But I think it was a mock-up just intended to provide visualization, like you said, Mayor Michaels, with respect to design build, what's possible, right? So
who do you think did that, Heather, by chance? Like, is that from us, from the town?
I'm not too sure if it doesn't appear to be the original design from the ISL bridge, like when the bridge went in originally. So I'm not sure where exactly they got it. I know there were some conversations with different engineers and contractors just to understand kind of what we're up against in terms of going forward with any of the options. So I can definitely follow up with Mr. Russo and I'll let you know, Beth, for sure.
So if
Sure.
it's okay, we'll park that and we'll get you an answer, Beth, on where this picture came from.
Yeah, because it actually looks like you're going to have gravel ramps and boards on gravel ramps and all this fancy dancy stuff, and nobody's caring about the wetland here, when really we should be thinking about at some point, you know, putting a little basic bridge in and digging out as much as that gravel as you can and putting a nice clean boardwalk across to let that wetland actually function the way it should be functioning instead of continually dumping gravel in. Like so, but I never heard any concern about the wetland in that council discussion at all.
Yeah, well, I think once the proposals come in, once the RFP is put out for the design build, that's and again, I appreciate your time for the last contract. I assume there'll be an environmental component to this, so I don't know how someone like yourself or whomever will play a part in that same process, but doing it again for this connection, that's maybe where some of your knowledge or expertise could work hand in hand with the contractor, because the budget's $125,000 total, right, for both sides.
Yeah.
So if we can remove some of that gravel with the creosol and build a pedestrian simple connection to that bridge, that's my ultimate goal, and I assume that's pretty much all you can do for $125,000 these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And just for everyone else, my participation in this is always volunteer. I'm not doing this as a money or professional or anything. Just to be clear, any involvement with the Beaver Boardwalk and any of this stuff is strictly volunteer.
Yeah, and we appreciate it. Like I know it's you have the best. You're coming from a good place for wanting to fix a really challenging situation, and I hope it wasn't perfect for the 4 sections, but hopefully we can do better for this connection to this bridge.
Hmm.
All right. Anything else, Beth, from tied to that?
Well, for now, yeah.
All right. Anyone else? Jalen, Marisa Lay. Oh, we have Louise also joining us. Hello, Louise.
I know Mary Sally looks like she's eating at the moment, so I should try that trick too. I was mainly here for an update on the maintenance which you've provided, and I'm also curious about the Beaver Boardwalk Committee and where that's at for moving forward.
Yeah, great question. I've been waiting for this for a long time, so I can't wait until this committee comes to fruition. Heather, I haven't got an update on where administration is for putting together terms or a draft yet for the terms of reference for council to discuss, because that's kind of where it's at. We have a motion of council to do this. Administration is going to bring forward something to council to say, hey, this is either like kind of the status quo, this is best practice, and then we'll have a public conversation about, hey, what do we want the composition of this board to be publicly, and then it'll be approved publicly at a council meeting. So Heather, any updates from the administrative standpoint on where this is?
Yeah, so the terms of reference are drafted and they will be being brought to the, let me just get the date here, May 18th council meeting, provided that everything goes okay at the Beaver Boardwalk committee meeting on next Monday, the 10th.
Yeah, thanks for that, Heather. We had targeted June, really at the latest. We obviously want to get this transitioned over, sort of like how HIMBA runs. I know it's a bit different because the boardwalk's a different amenity in town, but that'll be an important conversation. Seeing how that conversation went 2 years ago, there's I think it's a I don't want to say it's polarizing, but there's 2 different train of thoughts. It's like, how much input and contribution do you want from community members for something like the Beaver Boardwalk, and how much do you don't? I know where I stand. I've always said it. To me, these things are better in the hands of our community members who are passionate. They should be able to be almost judge, jury, and executioner. Obviously, council should approve budgets for that stuff. So that'll be the question. The disc golf agreement that we just signed. It's, hey, here, you get $10,150 a year. There's certain conditions you have to follow and do, but then it's kind of yours, right? Like to do some of the capital work. We're gonna have to ask these questions of how much input and what will be the mandate of this input that this board will bring to the councils of the day. So I encourage everyone, if it's May 18th, please join us, see how that conversation goes, give your feedback on how you want this board to be structured, because it'll be imperative on the decision-making process for the new council that comes in, because they're going to have to own it, each decision a lot more transparently, right? Because you'll get a committee, hypothetically, who will say, no, we're 7 members at large. We've talked to the community. We recommend not to do this. So a council will have to go really more uphill for these big things. So, and that's what we want. If there's well, there'll never be another bridge like that. But if there is another bridge like that, this committee will be a check and balance to say, no, like look at this, and I don't want to mess up that area ever again. So please share your input. Any questions on this committee thing?
No, that's helpful. I think, yeah, thanks for recapping some of the certain dynamics that make the committee a little bit different.
Anyone else? Any questions on the committee? Oh, Beth, I don't know, you're muted, sorry.
I guess just a comment, maybe it's been a long slog for the public. It's been 2 years where the public's sort of been closed out. So any step forward to me is a good step forward, even however the committee's structured would be a good start on actually having the public input more directly included in the decision making.
Yeah. No, good. Yeah, we've had many chats about that. So it'll be a glorious day once that comes. All right. Any other questions? We can pivot to anything.
I guess if I were going to give you why I showed up tonight, I'm here as a citizen, as a long-term Hinton citizen. But I come, I guess, because of the work I do and working with businesses with our current economic situation. I come not from an environmental standpoint, but as a concern for taxpayers in our current economy, with what we've had to put up with, what we're dealing with moving forward. I think on our committee, it needs to also have that component in it as well.
No, good, really good point, Louise. There are a lot of elements to making something successful, especially in a smaller community with, one of the gems that we have. So it's environmental, it's business, a short, medium, and long-term vision of what does this boardwalk look like as Hinton grows, right? I was actually just talking to a few realtors. The increase in people from Edmonton wanting to buy properties in Hinton is growing fast, and they're looking at homes that have secondary suites. It's not quite a major concern today, but it is going to come fast. So as Hinton's changing, a lot of these amenities, we have to align them together. So I think it's a really good point that it's not just an environmental, albeit that it's an extremely important facet for so many reasons because of the regulations in place and doing it right. So no, very good point. So I expect to see your name put forward to be on the committee, Louise. So that'll be great. All right, who's next?
Hi, it's Beth again. I'm just wondering, back to the discussion by council about the bridge. This 125,000 just seemed to me to come right out of the blue. Like, where did that come from when the grant actually was 250,000? So maybe you could explain your understanding of where that money, that was just, that dollar came out.
I think there's two explanations to this. I have my own personal thoughts. I don't like any money. I hope one day that we approach capital projects without a dollar amount and we put them out to design build tenders and let the prices come in. The Beaver Boardwalk 4-piece section, our budget was 300,000 and the approved one was $299,000. I'm not kidding you. This is a not good practice, but if you're going to practice this, at least lower the amount for it to be approved, so that if it exceeds 125, it has to come to council. The public can be part of that conversation. Yeah. So that was the rationale. Was it a guess? Yeah, it's not exactly what I want, but it's at least saying, hey, 265. I talked to 50 people and they're like, that's a lot of money for two connections on two sides. So 125 was more palatable. It seemed fine. I was floating between even $100,000. Look what we're doing at the disc, or not what we're doing, but volunteers working with people in the community who want to help out, give things in donation. That parking lot will be built for way less than this, and that's a way bigger project. So this is encouraging, but this is the world we live in, and I know it's not changing fast enough, but at least the 265 ticket price was dropped to a random kind of intuitive price that we heard from the community was reasonable. I hope that answers it a bit.
So just so I'm clear, so if, say, a bid comes in below 125, it won't come back to council, but if it's between 125 and 250, it would come back to council.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
So it increased that threshold. Like I said, I would want a request for decision to even, this is almost a different Zoom call.
Yeah.
This is a philosophical issue with the province of Alberta. I'll say even Canada. There's been a shift where the decision-making process for capital projects have been put in administration's hands. I believe that RFPs, councils should be actually awarding the contract. I did that once in my 7 years. It was in my first term. And municipalities across Alberta have stopped that. Whitecourt does it a bit more frequently. But what's wrong with a council? It's usually rubber stamping, sometimes even the administrative recommendation, because you do set out the criteria, but at least it's transparent and at least it's in front of everyone to say that, hey, Fine Line is the company that should be getting this bid, let's say, which was allocated there. It's public, and then council votes to finalize that. That's how things ought to be. So I know I kind of veered off a little bit, but this is a systemic issue, I think, in Alberta, where we just approve budget amounts and we stay out of it. In the public, especially on these politically explosive topics or situations, are kind of left at the expense of. And I know Heather's here, and administration does do some great work, but you never know. You don't know what you're getting because you're not involved, and it's not a lack of trust. It's about ownership and transparency with the public. That if we're going to allocate $200,000 to the Gerard Redmond Park, that should be public of what we're getting. But
I think maybe part of the problem here is those grants are filled out without a real plan. Like, you filled out, you got money, and what's the plan? So if you had a plan first and then applied for the money, it would all match a little better, and you'd hash out the plan part, like what should it be, removal and replacement? Should it be removal and nothing? Should it be, a boardwalk right through for lowering? You'd hash all that out before you even applied for the money. So I think that's the backwards part here that's made both the maintenance contract, that 300,000, and this one awkward, actually.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that a lot. Like this committee setting a medium and long-term vision, once it's in place, once that committee is working together, they're going to think about, okay, a 10-year plan. What do we want 10 years? And then we don't have to sort of knee-jerk react to these grants, like you said, and kind of do the backward approach to it. This one, okay, we have a grant that expires December 31st. We acted this way. These things should be, and I'm pretty confident will be avoided with a oversight committee recommending these capital projects, and they'll be vetted properly, right? So I agree with you, and until this committee's in place, hopefully this is the last of it.
Just to comment on the committee, and Beth, I thank you for what you just said. And I think there's been a lot of stops and starts with this. I know that I was in the gallery pre-COVID when I first heard you present on this. So this is a long time in the coming.
Yeah.
And I guess my concern, and I appreciate your encouragement, Marcel, about being a part of the committee. But at one part in this community, I was actually on 8 committees, because it always seems to be the same folks that show up to the meetings, that put the time in, that come out and try and deal with these things. I see Jaylyn out at all kinds of stuff. So I guess that's my hesitation. I tune in almost every week to town council. I think the most I've ever seen is 13 of us on there in a population of 10,000 people in a community. So as much as that's frustrating, I think these very important things have to have that commitment. And we need to get more people stepping up. And, you know, it's fine to sit in the coffee shop and complain, but come out to the meeting, learn, make good decisions, and be a part of it. So that's what I'll be advocating with folks that I know.
Yeah, thanks for saying that. And this, I think I know the answer to this a bit, or at least one segment. Government doesn't go out to the people. So they run their business, they run their meetings, and whoever is really political or whatever, they join in. And it's 7 people, it's 10 people. Now, the shift, I hope, and you see it with the AOCs of the world and other, I think, politicians, you have to reach your audience. You have to engage them. You have to do it differently. And that, it's not an easy answer, and it's going to take maybe a generation to change, but politics has to be accessible in the means of, or use the medium of choice for residents and constituents. And we're not doing that, right? So once we find a way to communicate and get input, sessions like this is just an example. You're starting to see it more. That's a bit of a better way. You know, it's an hour. You can log in. You can talk about only the topics that you want. So there needs to be a whole reform. So I know it's kind of a high level like add-on that I'm saying, but it's a good point, and we have to change it to get these new volunteers and these new people to be kind of interested in be one step closer to actually being a volunteer.
I think though too, you are leading the way in what you're doing with us being here right now. You know, between 6 and 7, you could be home with your kids, having dinner, playing right now.
Come on.
And when you pretend you don't like that, I know you do. So I just think this is a way you are modeling the way that if we claim we care about this, we need to be here.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, there's some hope out there. There's some really good people, and it's just connecting government. And I know we're going off top. If you tell yourself that no, politics isn't for you, that means politics is for you. That's what I believe. There's another fundamental issue. People who think it's not for them, that's why we as the world are where we are. But that's again another Zoom conversation. All right. What's next? You look almost ready to say something, Beth. You're,
I've said lots tonight, I think. Yeah.
anyone else? It could be high level. It could be anything. I know it's not a huge update now that the contract's signed and there's a few decisions made, so it makes it a bit different. But is there anything sort of high level you guys want to talk about? Anything?
I would love to throw out that, as I mentioned, Beth, your presentation, I don't even know how long that was ago, but you sure helped me to have a better understanding. And I had come to that meeting not even specifically coming to hear what you were going to present, and it was so beneficial and so helpful. So please keep talking. You help a lot. And I just wanted to say thanks.
Oh, thank you for that. I think what probably drives me is part of the reason for the boardwalk often gets overlooked, and it's really the whole part of the purpose is we have this beautiful little natural area wetland right in Hinton, and the idea was to give people the opportunity like to bridge the urban living, the urban environment with the wildland environment. And so many people, like even now, are reluctant to hike even on the town trails. Like it seems odd to us that are out all the time, but the boardwalk helps them bridge that gap. It's to slow people down. It's for them to start being aware. That's why interpretive signs, people are going to do their walk, their dog walking, whatever, but it is a way to bring people into nature and have them become aware and then appreciate it. And that's kind of the point, right beside two of the big subdivisions in Hinton. And to me, every new subdivision, even in big cities, should have a piece of nature built right in with them, because we are disconnecting so rapidly from understanding what benefits nature give us. And like with our expanding populations in urban world. So that's really what it is. This is precious little wetland right in Hinton has, and lots of communities in Edmonton don't even have anything like this. So anyway, I can stop talking now, but it's just sort of, this is really the purpose. It's not, yes, visitors are welcome, but it's not built for tourism. Like we're not Jasper. It's not built for all that. It's built as a community wetland. And we can bring our visitors and welcome people, but it isn't, we don't want to overrun it with too many different demands on it. Like if we have, say, too many people, like a lot more wanting, then you manage the people. You don't just keep on building out to accommodate more and more people. You start managing the people. And those are things that I think like a committee can be talking about, like talking, because it's easy to love something to death too. and that's what we want to avoid in the future, to actually have something so that you can still, like as soon as you go on the boardwalk, you're like, it's different, it's like, oh, this is a really neat place, and you want to keep that feel. That's what it's all about. So yeah, I think I had one more question maybe for myself. I can back myself up a bit. But yeah, thanks for saying that, Louise. There have been a couple of sort of volunteers wanting to get involved in doing some reclamation on that south-facing slope of Maxwell Lake. That's being slowly, there's sort of erosion happening and multiple trails and stuff. So I'm not sure if there's anything I think it's a great project. I met with the town people. They asked me to go out last year, like with Hans and Jesse, I think. And we talked about, repairing some of the erosion on those slopes and stuff. So I'm hopefully something can be at least planned to, in the near future to start some kind of reclamation program, because the south facing slope, again, you can take that really for granted. But it is just a unique little habitat there. And once that thing starts eroding away big time, it'll be really difficult to get that back. So that'll be just maybe an upcoming project that will be pretty much volunteer driven with support of the town, I hope. Yeah, so I just throw that out there or something in the works.
Yeah, I know we had chatted quickly about that. I don't have an update from the town perspective, but what was the last that you've heard from the town in your conversations? Like, I think you were talking to Chad. You had said, is what's the latest from your perspective, or at least what they've communicated to you?
To me, well, I think Laura Howarth had talked to Hans and Chad and Jesse, and they were sort of in support of it, but they weren't sure how much the town could support. Like we would need a load of dirt and maybe some rocks. So we'd need a few things from the town, and we could provide a lot of all the extra stuff and even seed and do all and the labor and everything. But I was going to have a meeting with Chad soon to see what the town could really, because it probably isn't in their budget cycle, but to see what the town could support in terms of initiative and timing and things like that. So we haven't really nailed that down, but it has been discussed with the town people, like they
Right.
know about it. So
And just to fill in everyone else, because I remember that email thread, and that was part of the issue with 2021, that there was no budget allocated, so they were going to try to work. So I think it's twofold. I'm happy to hear, and that's the ultimate goal, the town working with our user groups and people who are vested in our community. And I know it's a bad way to say it, but it's like, I want all politicians, including myself, to get out of the way sometimes for good things like that. So that's one element. The other one, if there's no budget or we're short on what is the minimum that you would need from the town, we need to then at least maybe find out what's needed for 2022 and make sure that that's proposed in the budget come fall and allocated for 2022. So maybe that's a more of an offline conversation or follow-up conversation with when you talk to Laura again or Chad and see where that's at. And if not, then it becomes political, where council should be allocating funds for reclamation there, whatever those funds may be. And then we at least have a public conversation to say, hey, do we want to put $15,000 aside to reclaim that in 2022?
it wouldn't even be anywhere near that number, like a load of dirt and a pile of rocks, really. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I'll try to set a meeting with Chad, and then we'll just go forward and see where everything is at. But it's something coming up, which whether it's this year or next year, it's kind of a good thing to do, I think. Yeah.
Well, yeah, keep us updated on that and see, if we can keep, having the synergy with obviously your group of people, businesses and many businesses help out, they gift that stuff. So
Yeah.
you've done an amazing job, and hopefully something can work out for 2021 then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Marie Soleil still there? I take questions in French too, eh? I'm just saying.
Mhm.
I'll answer anything. Bonjour.
No, that's nice. I'm good. All the good questions have been asked yet, so.
Okay, good. Jalen, you're good? Okay, well, we're looking to do this every 4 weeks, until we transition to the new committee. Like, this is a sensitive topic. As you know, there's been mistakes that have been made, and we have to own it, and we're trying to make the best of this situation. And I know I appreciate everybody's perspective on this. I know we've had some great chats, Beth, because the solutions don't always work out to be perfect, but I do appreciate that everyone can come to the table, share thoughts, and I do truly believe that the solutions that we're having today are at least sprinkled a bit better than what they would have been. And I know that's only a small win, and it's hard to really accept that it's not an A+, but everyone's effort and collaboration in difficult conversations sometimes that are polarizing have really led to at least a better solution. So I do appreciate everybody's input on that, and continue. We're elected officials and administrations are here to serve the community, right? This is about representing our community, so we should be having these conversations. Don't let go. Tracy Shepherd just, she did her whole tenure for chair for the Hinton Chamber of Commerce, and I loved her approach. And she would always be, oh, I'm sorry, to say that, but you shouldn't be. You should challenge your local elected officials, your administration all the time. And we need to take it because we're here representing you, and continue it up. I know there's resistance sometimes from people, and just continue, because that's the model that works. Because I'd argue that the old approach of a separation between residents, their constituents, and government has not worked, right? So keep it up. You guys took it kind of easy on me tonight, but in the future when there's more stuff, just keep doing what you're doing. So before I log off, any last minute questions? Hey, Louise, yeah.
I guess just from what you were saying and what Beth had said as well, as far as a tourism focus and that being a tourism destination, I struggle with that myself. I always have the idea of developing a parking lot. So we're going to have all these people that come out to this. But I thought it was a really interesting thought. And the speaker that we had in January, Doug Griffiths, came out and spoke to us about the interest in people who have lived in the urban areas, moving out to smaller locations and having that kind of interest. And I think it's exactly what Beth was speaking to. If you have that in your heart and you're looking for somewhere that you could experience the wildlife and you could get into nature, that's why you move to locations like this. And I think that's another piece that we need to look at when we market to people moving to our community. Not necessarily big giant tour buses pulling in, but families wanting to make this their home. That awareness piece about the Beaver Boardwalk is important, I think, as well. So anyway, that's my last thought. I'm done.
Yeah, that's going to be one of the biggest challenges in the next 20 years as Hinton becomes more of a tourist destination. It's been, creeping up slowly, obviously faster for some people and not as fast for others, is finding that balance on what we will be. And I'm with some of Beth's comments that what was the intention of this? We have to maintain it, but there's some other issues like you said, there are tour buses now that just drive up College and park there and drop off 50 people. And now that's growing. That just that's becoming more frequent. Now, what will that look like in 2026? I don't know, right? What will that look in 2030? And then we're going to have to, I don't want to say the word compromise, but we'll have to assess, where that's trending and how do we deal with that? Do we push that away a little bit? Do we incorporate that? Ultimately, we'll have to really set a long-term vision of the maximum growth of this. And hopefully the committee can tackle that in its long-term planning. But it's an imperative question because I do believe the community is divided a bit with using this as a selling point for Hinton and keeping it for ourselves. And it's a tough conversation. So, yeah. Bethy, you look like you're muted still. Sorry.
To me, you manage it. Like you can't overrun it. Like it's, if you just let it get bigger and bigger, you don't have it anymore. So what are we doing? So you manage the people. Maybe you limit the tour buses, charge them $50. Like say tour buses can come these times only, X amount a week, whatever, but you don't just let untrammeled, sort of development happen like that. And you actually make it almost by maybe restricting a bit, not to locals, but to tour buses, you maybe make it even more desirable. Like there's some areas, I would just say the McNeil River Falls in Alaska where the grizzly bears just focus in on the salmon. There's so many that they don't really care about people or themselves. Like they relax all of their normal boundaries, or even with other bears. So you'll have like 20 bears in a small section of river eating salmon when normally they would never allow that. And there is like tours, like you can sign up to go to McNeil River Falls and view this, but that one's in Alaska. I think there's some in BC like that too, but it's so like you actually sign up a couple of years before your name comes up, and then when it does, man, you're going there because it's such a special event. So I can see that kind of same thing. Like it makes no sense to me in subdivisions which weren't even designed for tour buses just to say, okay, we're just going to have as many tour buses as they want. That doesn't make sense, but you may be able to accommodate certain amount under certain conditions. And I would charge them some bucks and use that to feed the beavers or something too. It's like, really? Yeah. So it would be fun to have those discussions. They're important. And we really have to think a lot about that. So yeah, it's lots of work coming up, I guess.
All right. It looks like that's it for tonight. So I do want to thank all of you for tonight. I know it's a small group, but sometimes that makes for better conversation anyways, right? I think it flows a little bit better, and we'll talk to other people about this kind of stuff. So we'll probably release a date sometime in June for another one. Hopefully there's some updates regarding the grants and the extension, because that'll be a critical part. The last thing I want is for us to go down this road, and this would have to be outside of the grant funding if construction is past December 31st. So hopefully we'll have a better update on that, and send in any questions or any topics that you guys want to discuss. But and thanks, Heather. I know Heather's on there, and she has better things to do between 6 and 7. So thanks for setting this up and doing this. We appreciate it. And if there's ever anything, obviously reach out to the town or me anytime, and enjoy the rest of your evening before it rains for like 5 days in a row. It's true. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Marcel. Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.